back to the tax office and asked them to run the effective tax rate without the minerals. If every other category stayed exactly the way it was represented to you, and there were no minerals coming online, our effective tax rate would have been above the rate that we're proposing of 0.3975. We've gone back to DCAD and have asked for some help in evaluating what next year's tax roll is going to look like. That date is January 1 of 2012, which is right at 3 months away. DCAD, Denton County Appraisal District, has explained to us that we can expect at least a 30% reduction in those minerals. All those minerals are gas, and gas historically sees a huge decrease in value within the first 3 to 5 years. So it's going to decline rather dramatically in the first 1 to 2 years. And then depending on what gas values do, if people come in and do anything else, rework wells, then that remains to be seen. But we know those will reduce. What we don't know is what the other two values, we feel certain that the property and the land are not going to change dramatically, which when we put those two things together means that we probably will start our 2013 tax year with a lower effective tax rate. I tried to give you some different ways to look at it. Gave you our effective tax rate with the 30% decrease in the minerals, and I proposed a 1% increase in land and property just because I needed something that was reasonable. And if we have that scenario next year, our effective rate will be just almost in line with what our projected rate is. I've given you the 2011 minerals with and without, 2011 projected and effective with and without minerals, and then the actual negative growth for 2010. Those are the actual values for 2010. 2010 there was negative growth in the year, and we were below our effective rate. I've given you, let's see. Okay, so the effects of going to the effective rate is going to reduce our total general revenue by $108,000. Debt service is not going to change. Debt service was advertised at the rate it was advertised, and it can't be changed without going back through the entire scenario. So at this point, there's no realistic way to change that. When we received our appraised values, our certified values, and came and explained where that spike was, our best advice was to take that and consider it a one-time receipt of revenue and move it into CIP and save it for future expenditures that can be funded out of cash as opposed to having to debt finance something. This is just a quick form. This was in your packet. This was a quick analysis for me to give you, for you to see the three options next to each other. The total tax rate being across the top, the M&O component on each, the revenue, the general fund tax revenue generated by each, the corresponding total general revenue, and the ending fund balance. And option 1 reflects the transfer of the $150,000 to CIP. In order to keep the days of fund balance healthy, we took that out for scenario 2 and 3. One other way to look at this is with the noticing that we have to do, we take the actual proposed rate and compare it to the effective rate. And it's really like comparing apples and oranges, but that's the way the state legislature tells us we have to do it. A more realistic way for an individual, what is actually going to impact someone, is to look at the average homestead value and compare those two values. The actual, when you do that, the actual tax increase to someone is $5.78. And we've just gone back over the fact that we comprise 17.8% of someone's total tax bill when you look at all of the taxes that factor into the overlapping tax rate. One other point to remember is that Texas cities don't receive any state or federal funding. We are totally reliant on property taxes, component of franchise taxes and sales taxes. So depending on what happens with our tax rate, at some point, if we do not have corresponding increases in sales tax or franchise, then if the city needs more revenue to meet the service level that is anticipated, then typically they have to go to fees. And then we just have no other scenarios to go to raise money. DCAD performs the appraisals within a very strict definition of law. They are appraising to market, but if they take a value and appraise it to market and it increases by more than 10%, they are limited to taxing on the 10% increase. So there's guidelines in place that control the amount of tax liability that an individual taxpayer actually feels. In fact, there's multiple levels involved. So many times when you go